Welcome to the inaugural ASI Presidential Candidate Debate here in the Business Silo at Cal Poly San Luis Obispo. This event is co-sponsored by Mustang News and the Cal Poly College Republicans. I'm Sean McMinn, Managing Editor at Mustang News.
And I'm Nate Honeycutt, President of the Cal Poly College Republicans. After being a part of covering and being a part of past elections, we both saw the need for more candid discussion and conversations between the candidates running for ASI President. We independently planned to host debates this year and decided to combine forces to bring this event together.
We're live streaming on mustangnews.net via YouTube, and you can follow along at home with the hashtag CPDebate.
The debate will begin with 3 questions submitted by the audience here that were randomly selected by Sean and I. With all the questions tonight, only myself and Sean know what's going to be asked. After audience-submitted questions, we will ask our own questions of the candidates. For each question, the candidates are going to be given 90 seconds to respond, and then there'll be 90 seconds of open floor time at the end of all of the candidates responding, where the candidates can offer more of their thought and exchange and dialogue with each other.
Throughout the debate, we ask that those of you here in the audience keep your applause until the end, but now please join me in a big welcome for the candidates Connor Paquin, Jake Rogers, and Joy Sullivan. That is exactly what I meant. Thank you.
Okay. Each candidate will begin with a 3-minute opening statement. We drew lots to see who would go first, and we're going to start with Connor.
All right. Good evening, Mustangs. My name is Connor Paquin. I am a civil engineering junior from Sacramento, California, and I'm running for ASI President on the platform of leadership, efficiency, and connection. Now, I have 2 years elected experience representing students on the ASI Board of Directors. I know how these meetings go, and people get intimidated and wined and dined by administration. I am not one of those people. I have stood up for students before, and I will do it again. Now, I'm an engineer, and they teach us about efficiency from day one. And why not bring that into the running of our university, whether that's financially or administratively? And, I get it, guys. We're all broke, starving college students, and we just want a job after college, right? And I'm paying my whole campaign using saved up birthday money and washing all the dorm room windows on campus and working at Metro, washing all the dishes. So I understand firsthand how important it is that we spend our money wisely and we use our resources efficiently. And now my last point is connection. As much as I love student government, we're only 40 students up there working, and there's 19,000 students on this campus. And that is a huge difference. So next year in my executive cabinet, I will have student director positions. For example, Greek life, sustainability, diversity, athletics, clubs. Because we are much stronger in numbers. Let's establish a relationship. Let's work together so we can start to see some of these changes that we have all been waiting to see. And it all starts with that support and resource from ASI. So on April 23rd, vote Connor Paquin for ASI President.
Next, we'll go to Jake Rogers.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jake Rogers, and I'm a third-year agricultural business major. I want to start by thanking the Cal Poly College Republicans and Mustang News for putting on this wonderful event tonight. I believe that everyone has not only the ability, but the obligation to do whatever they can to be the difference. Now, I don't have your typical 3-pillar campaign platform, and even though I have some tangible ideas that I think would really benefit this Cal Poly community, that's not what this campaign is about. This campaign is about individual students, their needs, their desires, and their passions. Now, many people may criticize me because this campaign seems idealistic and lacking in tangible ideas that we can apply for the campus. But I believe that the campus deserves much more than my ideas. It deserves yours. A large portion of this campus suffers from apathy in regard to the Cal Poly community. Mustang News just took a poll and found that 25% of the students they polled don't even plan on voting in this campaign. And if we look at records from past campaigns, that number is actually going to be even greater. So if you're one of those people who are here or are watching right now, I want to begin by congratulating you and thanking you for caring enough about your Cal Poly community to be informed. What this campus needs to draw students out of apathy is a strong vision that inspires and empowers students to be the difference that they want to see. ASI should not simply be a group of students who kind of listen to what students want, come up with ideas to solve those problems, and do their best to employ them. ASI needs to be a community of students who make it a goal to engage students, inspire them to take action, and then are students who are servant leaders for this community. Now, I want to thank all of those who are involved in ASI. I recognize that you do what you believe is best for the Cal Poly community, and you put countless hours and all of your efforts into doing whatever you can to make Cal Poly the best it can be. So I thank you for your efforts, but also ask that everyone realize there is room for improvement. I believe that ASI needs to begin by leveraging the talents and abilities of every student on this campus. And in doing so, ideas are going to emerge that have never been considered before. Change will occur, and the entire Mustang community will benefit. Now, you have 3 very qualified candidates standing before you this evening. So as you listen to this debate, I ask that you look for the candidate that has a vision that will inspire students to be involved and carry this university into a bright future. But more importantly, no matter who you're going to vote for, take the ideas from all 3 of these candidates and apply them to your own time here at Cal Poly by leveraging your passions and your strengths so that you can be the difference.
And Joy Sullivan.
Hi everyone, my name is Joy Sullivan. I'm a political science major. You're here, or you're watching, because you want to know why we are running for ASI president and what we will do for you specifically as Cal Poly students. Running for the position of ASI president is quite an interesting experience. You have to persuade people to vote for you by pounding your qualifications into their heads, by putting up a ridiculous number of signs to create a marketing frenzy, by passing out free stuff, and by being an eloquent speaker. All of these strategies are useful and successful, but I think it comes down to more than that, or at least it should. If you're looking in this direction, you are looking at your future ASI president, the student who will lead you into the next year and be your voice in a room full of administrators. And who you want is someone who realizes that they are not the solution to every problem on this campus. The ASI president needs to be the catalyst for problem solving. They need to be fearless in taking initiative, humble in empowering others, and creative in casting a vision. To me, taking initiative has been deciding that the political science department needs more tangible representation and jumpstarting PIDEA, an academic journal for student original research. It has been taking the lead on collaborating with the San Luis Obispo Mayor and City Council to acquire a city endorsement of the Mustang Way. Further, humility and empowering others means recognizing that the accomplishments just stated could absolutely not have been possible without the support and the hard work of my respective teams. Having served on the executive cabinet for the previous 2 ASI presidents, I have had the opportunity to learn what real teamwork looks like in student government. Working closely with the ASI president for the past 2 years has allowed me to understand that true leadership is found in those who put the spotlight on their team, those who credit others for big successes, and those who realize that they are not the solution to every problem. Finally, casting a vision means not being ambivalent about your plans. It means taking steps forward and leading the charge. A leader is someone who quits talking about the issue and is bold enough to engage in action about it. My vision, as you may have heard, is a student government that does not shy away from the hard issues, specifically in the areas of money, safety, and community. 60% of Cal Poly students receive financial aid on this campus. Now, there's currently no group of students representing those financial concerns, and I plan to address that by the creation of that group of students. In regards to safety, I plan to create continuity between the projects that are already being worked on this year to make sure that we are continuously improving safety policy on this campus. And lastly, community. All the areas and entities on this campus are important and we're supporting, from athletics to Greek life to residence halls and academic colleges. This vote, this choice that you make, will likely not define all of your 4 years at Cal Poly. But when you vote,
Thank you, Joy. You've reached our time limit.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. We're going to start now and begin with audience questions. Now, before we started here tonight with the candidates, we asked everyone in the room to submit questions on note cards, and we chose 3 of them randomly. I'm going to ask one, I'm going to ask 2. Mr. Honeycutt's going to ask 1. How this is going to work is we'll start with the candidates in alphabetical order. So Connor went first. Next is going to come Jake, and then it'll go down the line from there. So Jake, if you want to start the question, what do you value more, learn by doing or the Mustang way, and why?
Cal Poly was established on the principle of learn by doing. Now, I very much support Mustang Way and the vision that President Armstrong has for that strong Cal Poly community united under the Mustang Way, and I really don't think that our learn by doing can exist without that principle. But like I said from the beginning, we have always been about learn by doing. That's why I came to Cal Poly. I looked at other schools and didn't see the opportunities to get in there and take what I learned in the classroom and apply it in ways that I could actually take outside of my college experience to my future career. So I will always place learn by doing before the principle of the Mustang Way, but like I said, I believe those two must coexist in order for this community to continue to prosper.
I would agree that learn by doing is the primary Cal Poly philosophy. It's mentioned in every speech that you give to prospective students. President Armstrong brings it up all the time, and it really is the foundation of who Cal Poly is at the core. We stand out because of learn by doing. That being said, the Mustang Way is something that already exists on this campus. It's not something that we push on students and say, you need to exhibit the Mustang Way. It already exists, and it's already embodied by the students on this campus. Pride, character, and responsibility are what define this campus, because that's what students already exhibit, and that's a wonderful thing. That being said, I do also agree that learn by doing outshines the Mustang Way in its power and the fact that it really is the foundation of Cal Poly.
I will also agree that learn by doing is Cal Poly's identity. When people ask and compare ourselves to other colleges, the first thing that they might say is learn by doing. Whether that's academics and being in the lab, learning how to weld, anything like that, or also extending that to our extracurricular activities with shared governance, with being in the room with administration or having a sustainability group present so that we can learn not only on top of our academics how to do things, but also how to work as a business and communicate with other groups and stakeholders. So I would say learn by doing.
We now have 90 seconds of open floor time, so just a reminder, this is a chance for anyone to jump in and say whatever they'd like, and for you all to critically engage with each other.
I think you both made great choices.
Very critical. Let's move on.
Okay. We'll do this trial and error here. Okay, next question. What are you doing to support clubs? What about club funding? We're going to start with Ms. Sullivan.
So clubs make up a huge part of this campus. There are, I believe, 300 or so clubs on this campus, all with varying purposes. And the interesting thing about club funding is that it actually is really housed under the board of directors, a different branch of student government that really focuses on and really allocates the money towards the clubs. I do think it's important for the ASI president to be involved in supporting clubs, and I think that comes down to making sure your cabinet, that's really the branch you have control over, is making sure your cabinet is continuously involved in other clubs on campus. That's really important. If I'm sitting there and saying I want to know what students are thinking and I want student feedback, and my cabinet is only involved in student government and not actually reaching out to those clubs, that's a problem. And because of that, I think really maintaining that perspective of student government is not the only entity on campus. And I do think that it is essential that student government really collaborates with outside entities and really helps to support clubs. I think that's already been seen in the past with student government, but I think there's improvement there that is definitely possible.
So Cal Poly has over 300 clubs, and for some students on campus, this is their connection to their ultimate college experience. And how does ASI play a part in this? ASI plays a part by providing club funding, so clubs are able to put on the events to enhance learn by doing and really outreach to the community and the Cal Poly campus. These last 2 years, I sat on the board of directors and have pushed to move tens of thousands of dollars from the ASI club funding reserves into the hands of our clubs so that they can use the money, because ASI money is your money, and your money really belongs with you. And on my executive cabinet, I will have a sole position, a student director, to work with clubs. Not just the college club councils as student government has right now, but all clubs, because there are over 300 clubs on this campus, and it's important that we don't forget about anybody, and everybody has representation.
I've had the unique opportunity this past year to serve as the president of the College of Agriculture Club Council. And in doing so, I've gotten to work closely with a lot of really great clubs, and I've seen a lot of the trials that these clubs face and also the importance that they have. I got my start in a club. I remember the reason I'm involved in leadership at Cal Poly is I had one student in a club meeting say, hey, you should run for a position. I think you'd be great. And that's the only reason I'm even here today. Clubs are the heart and soul of the Cal Poly experience. That's where it starts for the vast majority of students. And the bottom line is clubs need more funding, especially the club councils. We've run into, myself and my officer team, countless barriers because we just don't have the funding we need in order to properly serve the clubs that are within our council. Did you know that club councils cannot apply for event co-sponsorship for putting on events? That needs to change. These councils need the tools to be able to adequately serve the clubs that are within their councils. Also, communication starts at the club level. The purpose of my cabinet will largely be to provide the club councils with the training that they need to adequately serve the club so that communication can move up the chain into ASI. ASI should not move down into clubs. Clubs need to be the basis for everything that ASI does. The clubs should be working their way up through ASI, and information should pass in that way. And so if elected, that's one of my top priorities, is to work with those clubs, serve them in the best way that the ASI can to make sure that every voice is heard.
Open floor.
So Connor, you talked about how you've been pushing club funding through while on ASI. Can you give some examples of how you've been doing that and then how you think that needs to change in the future?
Yeah. So the board of the last 2 years, a motion was made to move money from the club funding reserves into the club funding to actually be distributed. And I have both times made the motion to increase that number more to tens of thousands of dollars to make sure that our reserves are not as high as they are, because that money is not being used. And so I was on the floor and really pushing and debating my fellow board members to see if we can make sure that that money gets to the clubs. And I will continue to do so if elected.
How?
The ASI president serves on the ASI Business and Finance Committee, and that is a way that I can really voice my opinion and have a vote to increase the amount of money that clubs have. And that is the way the ASI president serves to increase club funding.
How do you plan to have one student over or integrated with all 300 clubs?
Yeah, and so looking at the executive cabinet, it's about 9 people max. I want to make sure that all groups on campus are represented, and that's Greek life, sustainability, diversity, athletics as well on top of clubs. And so I will, whether it's 1 or 2 to work with clubs, I want to make sure all groups on campus have the representation.
All right, thank you. That's the time for the open floor. This question is to start with Connor. How have you exhibited the hard work needed to serve as ASI president?
Yes. So my last 2 years, I have shown so much hard work through ASI by not just showing up, but initiating and showing the passion that is needed in student government to get things done. Whether that's working with campus dining to get student feedback on their renovation of the Metro and Avenue area, whether that's taking the initiative to write resolutions in support of our quarters or to help sustainability groups with the goals that they have. That is the passion and hard work that is needed, and that is something that I have shown through my 2 years of experience.
In order to demonstrate my ability to work hard, as will be required for the position of ASI president, let me walk you through my normal day. So I usually get up around 6 o'clock, get dressed, and then go to my full-time job where I train horses for a living. So I then get to clean stalls for the next 2 hours, feed horses, and then ride until about 11 o'clock or noon, which I then change out of my nasty clothes and come to campus, where I'll be in class until probably 4 or 5 in the afternoon. At that point, I'm going to go to a meeting. Usually it's either Ag Council or where I'm serving as the vice president of the Cal Poly YCC. I'll attend those meetings trying to get things done to benefit students, and then I'll go to my extracurricular activities. This year, I had the amazing opportunity to be a part of the National Championship NAMA team, which required countless hours of work. So we would usually stay in the library till they kicked us out at 2 a.m. I would go home, get 4 hours of sleep, and start it all over the next day.
So I'm going to do a similar method and go off of all the things that I've been involved in on campus besides student government and hopefully give a picture of my work ethic. I'm currently a CLA, College of Liberal Arts, peer advisor. So I work 7 to 10 hours a week working with students to make sure that their schedules are set for future quarters and things like that. I'm currently producing a journal that has taken hundreds of hours of work to make sure that student original research is combined and published so that they have future opportunities to network with alumni and really succeed in the real world. I'm a College of Liberal Arts ambassador, so we meet bi-weekly and we really showcase to prospective students why they should choose Cal Poly and why they should be a liberal arts major. I've also been on the executive cabinet for 2 years, working on things like voter registration drive and really spearheading that, working on the Mustang Way, proclamation with the city council, being representative on numerous committees, and really spearheading different projects and really supporting other members of the cabinet's project. I'm also the co-president of a political science honor society called Pi Sigma Alpha, where we really push political science students to get involved and have future prospects as they graduate. And so, you might look at this list and say, okay, cool, you're involved in a bunch of things, but I think really what that shows is my variety of experience in conjunction with, if I couldn't keep up with that schedule and really make an impact, I wouldn't be involved in as many areas as I am.
90 seconds of open debate. Moving on.
Alrighty, this concludes our audience submitted questions, and we are now going to go into questions from Sean and I. So this first question, we're going to start with Jake. So I think it'd be safe to say that most of us here know people, other Cal Poly students who unfortunately think that ASI is a joke and student government's a waste of time. Since you're running, I think it's safe to say that all three of you don't agree with these sentiments. I promise this wasn't something Jake and I coordinated earlier, but I think it's safe to say that you don't agree, or as reported by Mustang News in a straw poll, 23.6% flat out don't even plan to vote. So my question, if elected, how would you reach out to the apathetic and ambivalent students? How would you work to modify these perceptions these students hold of ASI and student government? Would you even work to correct these perceptions?
As I talked about during my opening statement, it begins with casting a vision that students can buy into. Students are only going to get involved if they feel valued, and so in order to do that, we need to engage every student, leverage the ideas of every individual, and find a way to get them involved in making this Cal Poly community better. And the best way to do that is to give them the ability to chase after something that they're passionate about. I've talked to students just the other day in the UU while I was waiting in line for Starbucks, where I frequent often, that felt like their voice just was not heard, and they got lost in the shuffle of ASI. So it begins with making sure they feel like their voice is heard, and their voice actually is heard, and then giving them the tools, starting at the club level, also through our many fraternities and sororities, where they can get plugged in and chase after the things they're passionate about. As Connor said, we have 300 clubs that cover a wide variety of different topics, so we need to make sure we're getting those students into those clubs, chasing after the things that they want to do and that they have great ideas on how to benefit this Cal Poly campus, and then inspiring them to step out and be the difference. Now that starts with the actions of an individual. I know for myself, there's been certain individuals who have been willing to encourage me, remember my name, and tell me that I can do it and I'm capable of stepping up and benefiting the community. And so I believe that as ASI president, it's setting that tone, being out amongst the students and setting that tone amongst the board of directors, the UUAB, and your executive cabinet, that the individual matters and we have to reach out constantly to every individual.
So first off, that percentage makes me rather sad because I think voting is essential. It's your right and you should absolutely partake in it. I think in modifying the perceptions of ASI, it's really important to push the tangibles. It's important to actually show physical change on campus. Now, whether that's through things that were done this year, such as the executive cabinet really pushed for bike safety this year. And seeing those tangible bike lanes being spray painted, people know that ASI student government is doing something. So it's really pushing those tangible ideas, and that's why, I would like to create that group of students to advocate on behalf of every single student at Cal Poly and their financial concerns at the city and state level. Because I think it's important for students to have a medium by which they can go to express their concerns and making sure that they are aware of those resources. But it's even, taking that charge. The ASI president, it really, you can't just wait for things to come your way. It's really taking that charge, taking that next step, and being bold enough to say, I'm going to take a risk and actually push forward my ideas and not wait for the okay from every single person. If your ideas are worthwhile and well thought out, they should succeed. And I think that really comes down to even small things like, attending different groups and listening to their concerns and actually making, a huge effort to work on those issues.
Now, just because 23% says they're not getting involved in any way does not mean we should give up on anybody. And my guess is why that number is because we don't see change on campus while we're here, year after year. Because change takes a long time. But again, it's making sure that people know, making sure that we can highlight it, but also information, education goes a long way. But not only that, the opportunity to voice your concern, and on top of that, actually get involved. Because when you have a stake in something, you will be passionate and you will want to take part of that change. So for example, this year I've had the opportunity to work with a sustainability organization, the Real Food Collaborative, work together, writing a resolution to present to administration to say, hey, we would love to see 40% real food on campus, healthy organic options without a change in price. Having people with the opportunity to get involved is where it is at. So we will continue this out next year so that you're not just filling out surveys, that it's quantitative data that somebody may or may not read and we don't know whatever happens to them.
90 seconds for open floor.
So Connor, you talk about next year it being not just filling out surveys. So my challenge to you is, if you're ASI president, what are you going to do that's not just filling out resolutions?
Exactly. And one way is, if it's not a survey, part of a survey is actually outreach. And last year, we did something called the Outreach and Communication Report, where we physically went out into the University Union Plaza, in the Starbucks line, out to Dexter Lawn, and walked up to people and said, hey, what do you think about anything on campus? What do you think about campus dining? And not only why do you not like something, why is it the way it is? So we can actually dig deeper to address specifics so that we are on a better path towards changing that and addressing that. And that is exactly one way that we can take this.
I would just like to make a point that there was a survey earlier this year called the Let Your Voice Be Heard survey. And actually, that data was collected and actually defined the executive cabinet's projects for the year. That's what I've been working all year under the presidency of Jason Colombini, and that actually has been an effective way of defining what the needs are on campus and what students really want.
And to go off that, there's a lot of campus dining surveys. There's been one this year. There's another one that's coming out. So I think it's important that when we talk about surveys, I'm talking about those surveys. And it's important that we work with campus dining, and students don't always know what happens to those surveys.
Thank you.
Okay, next question. When the student success fee was passed a couple years ago, the CSU was in a deep hole in terms of budget. Moving forward since then, up until this point, revenues have started increasing to the CSU and specifically to Cal Poly. There's also been expanding criticism of student success fees across the country. So the question is, do you think that the student success fee is still appropriate to have at Cal Poly?
I think at this point, due to the financial state of the state of California, I do think at this point it is still effective if it's handled in the correct manner. So the Student Success Fee Committee is chaired by the ASI president, and it's really essential for the ASI president to push the things that really matter most to students. And I believe on this campus we can probably all agree that the biggest thing is really classes and making sure that you can graduate in 4 years. And it's really pushing to make sure that that money is allocated in the exact way that students want, and that is to classes. And there's a lot of other things that money can go towards, but I believe, and already a huge chunk of that money does go towards classes, but I think a larger chunk should continue to be funneled towards classes because that is the biggest need on this campus.
So I had the privilege of actually sitting on the Student Success Fee Committee this year representing the College of Engineering. And we've had the provost in to kind of talk about the financial state and how things are. And this is a quote. She said, "It stops the bleeding, and we would be in bad shape without it." And I think that's important to note that if we didn't have the student success fee, we would not have nearly as many classes as we do today. And we do need those classes. We still need more classes on top of what we have. But because of the roughly 65% of that student success fee that goes to the classes, it's very important that we have that funding there.
I know as a Cal Poly student, there's two things I'm concerned about. And the first is that I believe that next year, my Cal Poly degree should be worth more than it is this year. And I believe that's really the ultimate goal of any administrator, staff, faculty, ASI officer, and student at Cal Poly, is to make sure that happens. And the other one is to make sure that there's those extracurricular activities that I want to get involved in that I can showcase when I leave Cal Poly to say, look at what I did at Cal Poly in my classes and look at how I applied it, so that I can move on to the real world and be successful. So that being said, even though the economy may be better, economies are still unstable. We don't know what's going to happen, so there's no point in surrendering that money now to just have to take it back in 3 years. Furthermore, that fee is not going to increase on a per-student basis. The only increase for the student success fee will come as more students are admitted to Cal Poly. Because of that, all of this money is already allocated. All the ASI will be doing in the future is monitoring the programs that are in place, how the money is being spent, and making sure that that's used effectively. We've seen a lot of new classes and sections of classes be open because of this fee. So we're going to get to continue to monitor that to make sure, as I said, that your degree is worth more tomorrow than it is today.
Okay. You all agree, but do you have any follow-ups?
I'm just curious, for both of you, actually, beyond the student success fee, how else do you plan to advocate on behalf of student financial concerns? Because I'm pretty sure every student on this campus has financial concerns to some degree or another. And seeing that that is the biggest concern, what will you do to actually alleviate those concerns?
Money is always a very difficult issue when you're addressing ASI, because the bottom line comes down to the ASI president does not have the power to decide what you pay in tuition or what your fees are going to be. We can lobby on your behalf, we can make sure that your voice is heard, but that's not our decision. Now, that being said, there are tangible issues that we can address to help solve this issue. So maybe whoever's elected can't decide everyone's tuition is going to be lower, but we can look at the fact that an increasingly large number of students on college campuses are food insecure. That means that they don't necessarily know where their next meal is going to come from, and that affects them both at home and in the classroom. So we can take steps to creating a Cal Poly food pantry. I don't want to steal Joy's idea. I did think it was a great idea with the voucher program, with those extra dollars off of the plus cards to be donated to use for students that don't necessarily have the funds that they need. And in doing this, students can make simple steps and say, I've got 20 extra plus dollars left. So instead of going and buying all of my friends Frappuccinos, I'm going to donate this. And in that way, they can be the difference.
We're almost out of time here, but I'm going to give Connor a chance to answer this because you did ask both of them. So go ahead.
So my big thing is efficiency, and that's to make sure that we prioritize our resources and really ask the critical questions. Are other things needed before we can allocate towards what we really need? Do we really need more marketing directors or assistants if we need that money somewhere else? And that's my big stance on this.
All right, next question. And this one is going to start with Connor. Cal Poly launched an extensive campus climate survey last quarter, the results of which haven't been released publicly. What is your broad general assessment of the campus climate? What's being done well? If elected, what would you seek to improve?
For the most part, campus is inclusive. And that's something that's important because it's not just about diversity, it's also about inclusivity. And that's something that we need to know. But working with those results, I will have a student director that will be working with diversity groups. And this person will not only work with Chinese Student Association or Filipino Cultural Exchange and groups like that, but also between ASI and administration and the Office of Diversity and Inclusivity so that we can work together when we see those results, set up goals, and get feedback so that we can take those and turn that into something productive.
I too would like to look to tackle the huge issue of diversity, which multiple ASI presidents have tried to tackle. I know administration is looking at this issue. You're not going to find a college throughout the nation that isn't concerned about diversity. And I believe that the place that starts is integration over separation. Diversity can't just be a separate issue that we tackle on its own. It has to be throughout the Cal Poly culture. Just because you're part of a cultural club doesn't mean you should be the only people that are concerned about diversity. The Agricultural Business Management Club should be just as concerned about the issue of diversity as should any of the fraternities or sororities in the USFC. Now, that may mean ethnic diversity, that may be diversity of ideas, or even in income levels, but we need to look to promote that diversity throughout the campus. And I think one place that starts is generating a stronger sense of school pride. You look at some of these larger universities, and they're just stoked about their college. No matter what they're doing, no matter how good or bad their sports team are, they're always there to support them because they love their school. And we've made huge steps toward that with the NCAA men's basketball team making it to the big dance this year. The baseball team is amazing. If you haven't seen them, go watch them. And those are great steps, but we need to continue to move forward as ASI to generate that common bond between us of being Cal Poly Mustangs. And in doing that, diversity will continue to spread throughout the campus.
So a lot of that survey is about, community building, and that is one of my areas of my platform. And I think that a lot of that comes down to making sure student government goes beyond the UU and collaborates with different entities. Now, Jake talks a lot about school pride, which is something that is huge and absolutely worth continuing to foster. I've actually met with the athletic director and discussed with him the ways in which we can promote school pride and the ways in which student government can really support our athletic teams. Our baseball team just became #1 in the nation today, which is, you heard the cheer, which is fantastic. And, our school, we can support them better. And not just them, but other areas on campus that I've mentioned previously. But another thing is, it is important to define diversity and what you're talking about. One of my big ideas, Jake actually mentioned it. I'm not really sure who came up with it first. I don't actually know. But diversity of income is something that I think can be improved on this campus. And one thing I would like to do is to see the creation of a food bank. I've seen this in other campuses, and it really would provide the infrastructure so that prospective students who come from lower income families can actually come to the school and say, I am going to be supported when I'm here. And that might actually draw them to Cal Poly. I think that's a really important thing to improve, and I do believe that more diversity of income is a great thing and a great way for Cal Poly's community to continue to develop.
It sounds like a lot of you three said the same thing, but let's open it up for 90 seconds of open floor.
How many people are actually going to be on your executive cabinet?
Good question. The ASI bylaws actually say about 5 to 9 people serve on the executive cabinet, and I have those lined out as student directors. And the ones I have are for now is sustainability, Greek life, diversity, athletics, clubs, and I'm going to expand that. And so those people will work with the outside organization. The goal is to have as many people as we can to support all different types of organizations so that everybody has representation.
Don't you think it's a little overwhelming to have one representative trying to work with the entire Greek community, or one representative trying to tackle the entire idea of diversity as one student?
And that one student, I'll take Greek life, since you mentioned that. That one student will work with Panhellenic, will work with IFC, will work with USFC, because those bodies are already representative, and they know about their Greek life chapters and the issues that they are dealing with. So when it's connection, it's not only that, but it'll go further than that. So it'll basically connect them to those organizations in that way, really make sure that we have that connection and communication.
And one follow-up question. And you do consider the student director positions to be a new and innovative idea, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Next question. In your opinion, how transparent is ASI now? And moving forward to next year, is there anything you would do to change its transparency? Starting with, yes, Jake.
I think ASI has made huge steps toward transparency in the past year. I want to praise Jason for his office hours this year. Great idea, giving students the opportunity to come in and just sit down and have a talk with the ASI president, making himself very open. Transparency is a huge issue that we have to continue to tackle. I know as Ag Council President, we've ran into problems with this with administration, and it's been the priority of myself and my fellow officers to make sure we're transparent in the decisions that were made. I think an area for growth is that ASI can inform students more about the reasoning behind the decisions that are made. I think they're really good at listening to student voices and then acting upon those, but they don't necessarily inform students on the intermediary steps on this is where we heard your voice. So these are kind of the decisions we made, taking into account our experiences, the things we've heard from you, what the administration has said, because a lot of students don't know what's coming down from administration affecting those decisions. And in that way, we can really help walk students through the process of how these decisions are made and maybe give a better understanding of how this campus really functions.
I'm going to follow up on Jake's about his comment about office hours. That's one of my favorite things that Jason's done this year, but I think it can go a step further than that. Office hours, people come to you, and a lot of times people don't show. Maybe out of lack of knowledge or just out of intimidation, maybe. But something that I would like to do is actually be proactive. One of my favorite things is to just go meet students and be proactive about it and actually go into the UU Plaza and just start talking to random people, maybe a little bit strange, and they may be a little freaked out at first. But I think it's really important for the ASI president to be continuously gauging the student body and student concerns. Another thing is I think that student government can be more efficient or just really better at educating their members to make sure that they are fully in the know. And they never feel like they never feel like full disclosure is a bad thing to anyone, whether that's Mustang News or just a student off the street. I think it's really important that student government is as open and transparent as possible when speaking to other entities on campus and never feeling like we need to withhold information so that we are more successful in the future. Another thing I would love to do is actually to go to a club a week. It's a big commitment, but I think it's worthwhile, and maybe that's drawing a club out of a hat to decide which one. But I think that would be really helpful in really understanding student opinion.
So the way ASI kind of operates right now is that when we talk about transparency, it's mainly what have we done? This is what we did. But we don't really talk about what we're doing right now or what we want to do in the future. And because we don't do that, we are missing out. If we can do that, if we can talk about the now, talk about what we want to do in the future, that is going to open the door for opportunity for involvement. That is going to open the door for student feedback and input. And isn't that what we want? So whether that's through the office hours, whether that's through conversations with a board member and just a student in a class, or whether that's through Mustang News, it's the attitude that we have that we need to make sure that we are not scared to release information and that, in fact, that we welcome it.
Okay, 90 seconds for open response. Or not.
All right, you're making this easy on each other tonight. So next question, and this one is going to start with Joy. It seems like one of the moderately difficult things about this election is that you were all relatively similar. I know not completely. I mean, you guys have different majors, different backgrounds, experiences, and whatnot. But my question, how would you differentiate yourselves from each other? What sets each of you apart from the other two?
So I guess I'll go one by one. That might be the easiest thing to do. I think something that differentiates me is, actually, I'm going to do both at once. I have the tangible ideas. If you ask me, what am I going to do about money, I've got 3 ideas ready for you. I've got $+ potential to donate $+ into a fund that gets distributed to lower, income students. I really have those ideas. And really, when you're electing your ASI president, you want someone that is ready to lead. You don't want someone who's ready to say, I'll let the students decide. And it's important to make sure that you have those tangible ideas. That's just one example. But I think that's the biggest thing that sets me apart from these 2 very qualified candidates as well. I do have a lot of experience on student government and have been on the executive cabinet and was recently ratified to the board of directors. And I did serve as the liaison to the board of directors, so I did attend all of their meetings fall quarter as well. And so I have a pretty widespread knowledge of student government and really how it works and what faults it has and how we can do better. And I think that experience combined with those tangible ideas are really what differentiate me from these two fine gentlemen to my right.
What sets me apart from the other candidates is the leadership experience. Through my 2 years of being an elected representative, I have worked with administration very closely. For example, on the Student Success Fee Committee, on the Registration and Scheduling Committee, on the University Technology Governance Committee, where our vice presidents sit on these committees. And I have worked with them closely, and I know how intimidating that room gets and how it persuades people and how it can change decisions, and it should not be that way. And I've stood up for the College of Engineering on the Student Success Fee before, bringing their actual voices that they have written down into that committee. But not only that, I really have a plan to connect campus. And again, I'll talk about my student directors. It's connecting all areas of campus. Greek life, sustainability, diversity, clubs, athletics, because right now ASI just focuses on college club councils, but there's so much more to Cal Poly than that. We are so well-rounded. So if we can really connect ourselves, that is something that will go a long way. So connection and the leadership experience.
I'm going to take the exact opposite stance. I think what makes me stand out is that I haven't been on ASI in my Cal Poly career. I've been serving on the Ag Council. I've been a co-chair for Open House. I've been a club officer. I've been in the organizations that ASI is designed to support. And in being in those organizations, I've seen how we can help improve them. I've been in the nitty-gritty right alongside all of you who are watching right now, and not just with the other 40 students that are within ASI. Now, as I said, those are 40 hardworking, dedicated students, and I would never discredit their efforts. But I do believe being outside that bubble gives a little bit different of a perspective. Furthermore, my platform takes the stance of a mix of some tangible ideas, but strongly putting the onus on students, because it's not about me. This isn't my spotlight. It's not about how great I am and why I deserve to be ASI president. It's why you are Cal Poly students and what you can do to benefit this community, and then giving you the tools that you're going to need in order to truly benefit the students around you. And it's really creating that inspiration. I think Joy's heart is definitely in the right place. I remember telling my campaign manager the first time I met Joy that I don't want to run against her because she is the most delightful person I have ever met. But I am afraid that having too many tangible ideas can sometimes make you lose focus of what the students are aiming to accomplish.
Well, let's open up this question to some open debate.
Connor, you took the stance that your ASI leadership makes you stand out. Obviously, Joy has a lot of leadership experience. I have some around the campus. So are you insinuating in any way that ASI leadership takes precedence or is better than other involvement around campus?
Now, when I say leadership experience, the ASI president works very externally with the student body in the sense that they're the ones that's in the room with administration and working with our vice presidents and president and on a CSU level even. And I have that experience of being in that room and sitting on those committees and being that elected representative, for example, on the student success fee, and really working with administration, because a lot of the work that happens in student government happens in the form of committees. And I've sat on those committees and really have relationships with our administrators.
So is that a yes?
It does not take precedence, but it's saying that I have the experience of working in those situations.
So my question is, I've been on the other side of the ASI president in terms of, I've been on the cabinet for 2 years, and so I have a very good understanding of what works and what doesn't work in leading a cabinet. I'm just curious, I guess this could be for both of you if we have time, how you plan to inspire—
We have time.
Oh. Thanks, Sean. How you plan to inspire your cabinet members? Now, it's one thing to say you have leadership qualities, but I mean, Connor, you've been on board of directors. It's really different than the executive cabinet. And I mean, Jake, even with your college club council experience, you know, it's really different. You have 7 to 9 people who are literally, I don't want to say under your command, but they are serving your goals. What are you going to do? How are you going to inspire them? And how do you make sure that they feel empowered, but really autonomous as well.
Yeah, and one of the best ways to do that is to have people on your cabinet that are already inspired and already and passionate for change. Because I've seen people in student government who have that passion, and they will go way above and beyond the call of duty before you even ask them to. And those are the type of people that we want in student government, the fresh blood and open mind and passion.
The biggest way that I plan on tackling that daunting challenge is, first of all, finding students that have the why. A lot of people focus on the what and the how. What am I doing? What's my product? What am I delivering? How am I going to do it? But they don't focus on the why. What really inspires you? And if we look at all great leaders throughout time, it was about the why. We'll take a stereotypical one off the top of my head, Martin Luther King Jr. People know him because he led the civil rights movement. That's what he did. How did he do it? Through peaceful protests, speeches, inspiring people. Why did he did it? That's what a lot of people don't know. A lot of people think he did it because he believed in civil rights. He actually did it because he believes in a higher power. He believed that all men were created by the same person, and in being such, they should be treated the same. And that was his inspiration to continue to always chase after the things that were important. So it starts with finding students that, why do you want to be involved in ASI? Not to put it on your resume to look better, not because it's going to give you some cool opportunities to do cool stuff, but because you want to serve people. And then also recognizing it's going to be a long year. They're going to get tired. And so making sure that we're giving them tasks that they're passionate about pursuing. So even those 2 a.m. nights when they're just exhausted and don't want to work anymore, that passion is going to continue on. And then giving them the freedom, not micromanaging them, saying, you probably know more about this topic than I do because you're so passionate about it. So here's the tools you need. Let me know how I can help. This is your project. Do it to make Cal Poly better.
I have a follow-up question then for Connor. You mentioned a lot of fresh blood. I'm curious how you find yourself to be fresh blood since you've been in student government for a few years.
Yeah, and when I say the differences between old blood and new blood, you know, there's a lot of the representatives that we have that are veterans teach the new people that come through. And if there's some relationship with a campus entity or some mindset that we have about whatever that is, it's going to get passed down through the years. But that needs to stop because we need to have our open mind to make sure that we can all work together because nothing's going to change if we don't. And so the fresh blood that I have is being that transparent, not focusing on what we already did, but on the now and the future, and also being willing to establish relationships and have an open mindset to any of the changes that we want to see.
So you just said that old blood is people that have been in ASI and those ideas get passed down through ASI, correct?
It's the mindset.
It's the mindset.
So
as someone that's never been in ASI before, and you as someone that's been in ASI for 2 years, does that not make my blood newer blood than yours?
It's more like experience brings a certain mindset, and that's the mindset that we need to stray away from. You know, we know information, and we know why things are the way they are from being in student government. So oftentimes when people say, hey, why is campus dining? Why does the food suck? And then we say, oh, this is the reason why. It shuts down the conversation. We need to say, here's why it is the way it is, but let's move forward. Now that you know that reason, let's see what you think about it. And let's go back to administration because they're going to want to know why it is, you know, what the student still is thinking. And a lot of times administration is hesitant to change because they say, oh, that these students don't know why it is the way it is. So if we can do that and move forward and really work with that, that will go a long way.
Before we move to the next question, Joy, I want to give you a chance to respond to something Jake said earlier about having too many ideas going into office and not allowing enough room for student input in your presidency. Do you have a response to that?
Yeah, sure. So the interesting thing is, you know, you walk in, if I'm elected, okay, so I have these tangible ideas. I have 3 really big ones. And those are things that I absolutely want to set in place. But that doesn't mean that student voices don't matter in the room. And if students have ideas, especially those on my cabinet if elected, if students have ideas, you know, that outweigh the ones that I have, then of course, you know, we'll pursue those. And I think, you know, with 7 to 9 people, there's a lot of areas and directions in which you can go. And so I think it is definitely possible to actually engage in more tangible ideas than what I have offered already.
Thank you. Next question starts with Connor. How well do you understand Cal Poly's role among the 23 CSUs, and how would you approach that relationship if you were elected president?
Yeah, so I actually have internal and external experience working in the CSU system. Internally, I have been to what's called CSSA, the California State Student Association, the collective voice of the 23 CSUs. I have been to those conferences with our current ASI president to voice the concerns and to work with other CSUs so we can work together, share ideas, what works better for you, and how can we use that on our campus. But not only that, I have also worked externally from ASI in the sense that I worked as a student health services representative representing the 427,000 students of the CSU and really making sure that it's not just about Cal Poly in that sense, but everybody. Having that experience really goes a long way interpreting into and using that into Cal Poly, using that for every student. So I have worked really well with the CSU, and moving forward, they see us as a leader. They look up to us. They see how do you get so much voter turnout? Because theirs is not as good as ours. And so we want to work together with them. We want to share our resources, have roundtable discussions, because why reinvent the wheel if one of us has already done something really well?
I decided at the beginning of this campaign I wasn't going to be one of those candidates that talked around a question or kind of lied to make myself look better. So I'll be real honest. I do not have a whole lot of experience dealing externally with the other CSUs. Now, that being said, I believe that the same principles that apply to how we handle things internally can be amplified to deal with things externally and still have an impact. First of all, I strongly believe we are not just another CSU. They don't call us Cal State San Luis Obispo. We are California Polytechnic State University. That makes us different. And so that means that in any problems we tackle, we need to keep that mindset that we are a little different. But we are still part of the CSU system. We share similar concerns. Their students are just as concerned about how they're going to pay for classes as we are. Their students, if they don't have great campus dining, are probably concerned that they don't have great campus dining. So as Connor said, we can look at how have you handled things and done them well, how have we handled things and done them well, and then view that through the lens of, now how does that work for Cal Poly doing things and handling well? How do we maybe take some of those ideas and then integrate them into the Mustang way, and as all three of us talked about, the learn by doing, and taking some other ideas from other universities and giving students to learn by implementing those ideas while also sharing what's worked for us for the rest of the CSUs.
So I would place myself somewhere in the middle between Jake and Connor in terms of experience and just understanding of our place in the CSU system. So the California State Student Association is a place where, as Connor mentioned, the ASI president goes and represents Cal Poly in those discussions and in those meetings. I think it's important to make sure our presence is there and our voice is heard and that we are a leader in those situations. I also want to make sure that if elected, our time spent there and our energy is worthwhile. I think it's essential to recognize that, you know, we do have to pay money to belong to the CSSA, California State Student Association. And just to make sure that the money that we pay, we are actually gaining from that involvement. That being said, I do think, you know, that belonging to the CSU system is a fantastic thing, but I would agree with Jake in that differentiating ourselves from the other CSU campuses is huge. And I think we already do a great job of that, but being in that room and being a leader amongst the CSU campuses is a huge thing. And I think Cal Poly has already shown itself to be a campus of leaders. But I know there's room for improvement, and I plan to do that if elected.
Open response.
What are your guys' plans for with the CSS fee raise if they decide to move forward to that? Do you plan on just not paying the fee and not being a part of the CSSA, looking to the president's office, having students do it? Do you have educational plans for educating students on how to opt out? What's your kind of feel and opinion on the whole CSSA issue?
So I think you're referring to the student representation fee. So there's a fee that the CSSA is actually has endorsed and sent it to the CSU Board of Trustees. It's called the student representation fee, which is a $4 optional fee, but you already have to pay it unless you opt out. Myself and another board member, Myra Lukens, have written a resolution and taken a firm stance and passed that unanimously through the board of directors and sent to the board of trustees and CSSA, which says there shouldn't be hidden fees. There's no budget structure for this fee. It's increasing it from a current budget of $300,000 to about $1.5 million or more, but we don't know where that money is going. So we need to stand up and show the CSUs that that's not okay, that we need to have some type of plan before we pass that fee. And that is my stance on that, is not that I'm against a sustainable funding source for this organization, but that we need to do it in the right and appropriate ways.
I would agree in the sense that, not having students, be involved in that process of deciding the fee is an issue. And because of that, at this point, I would agree with Connor in that, it's not something to support the way it stands.
So opt out or drop out?
You mean drop out of
CSSA, or are you going to lead a charge, marketing campaign, information campaign to teach students how to not pay the fee?
I would say at this point, opting out would be the better option at this point. If there's that's actually where I'm going to leave it at that. I think opting out is the better option because at this point, I believe that involvement in CSSA is beneficial.
I completely agree with that. We need to opt out to show that we're not in support of this fee and that we need to see more from CSSA and their plans before we actually pay this fee. But again, we can't lose our voice at CSSA, because if we give that up, something like this can keep happening and the CSSA will lose a good leader.
Jake, can we get your opinion on this?
Yeah, I'd love to share that. It starts with more than a resolution, in my opinion, and that's a strong push in educating students using all of ASI's abundant resources, people, time, efforts, and money to teach students how to opt out of this fee. I would be so excited if 100% of Cal Poly students opted out of the fee. And in that way, we can still be a part of CSSA, which, as both candidates, in my opinion, rightfully said, is very important to maintain our voice. But we're also sending a strong message to CSSA that you are not going to raise fees on students without talking to them first and without giving an itemized budget on what the money is going to be used for.
Thank you.
All righty, we're going to go into our last question for the evening. So going through the election process and experiencing the election code and all of that, is there anything that you would work to change if elected as president? We're starting with Jake.
I'm going to direct this one back to the transparency question. This election needs to be completely transparent. We ran into the issue with, I think we might have had $1,200 in possible fines racked up at one point. That's ridiculous. We need to make sure that the media has access to the candidates, that we have the ability to speak out and inform students on what's going on. Because even if, two of us aren't going to get elected, but our ideas still matter, and the longer we have to voice those ideas, the more of them are going to get out and the bigger impact it's going to have. Now, that being said, I recognize there's a reason some of these restrictions are in place to make it a level playing field. And that needs to remain in place, but there needs to be a longer time period that students have the ability to hear from the candidates, that candidates have the ability to campaign. So tangibly, I believe that means that the time you can put signs up on campus should still be relatively short. I'm sure everyone is really tired of seeing our signs around campus and picking them up after they've been blown on the ground. But there needs to be media access to the candidates. There needs to be, this should be an even larger event. More students need to be engaged, and I think that will happen if they simply have more time to get involved in this process.
So I believe we're talking primarily about the media policy that was under speculation, I guess, earlier. I think that, the minute that came out and that became an issue, not quite that minute, but a few days later, I actually emailed the rest of the candidates and wanted to work as a team to approach this issue. We kind of found ourselves in crossfire between ASI, Mustang News, and we were right in the middle. And I think it was really important to approach it from a teamwork stance. And, we ended up writing this joint statement to hope to change the policy. And when that policy was under discussion, I was the only candidate present in the room because it's really important to me that First Amendment rights are upheld and that the media does have access to the candidates. Now, luckily that benefited all of us. It wasn't just for my individual benefit. But in that sense, I think First Amendment rights are definitely absolutely worth pushing forward. And so if elected next year, that's something that I would really, really stand firm on upholding that policy in the way it stands right now.
I'm going to talk about the media policy that ASI currently has, and that is that before you talk to a reporter, if you're in ASI, you have to go through our publicity coordinator to make sure that it's okay that we can talk to people. I don't think that policy is appropriate. I think ASI should not fear talking to a reporter, nor should we have to be filtered by ASI staff. If there's a report that we have that we want to release to students or anything that we're working on, we should be able to do it because, again, that's opportunities that we are giving. So we need to encourage that transparency because that will help us tell the students not only what we're doing, but not only what we have done, but what we are doing and what we will do in the future.
Let's bring it up to open debate. Before we start, could we get a response from Connor addressing the election aspect?
Oh, yeah. So in terms of the election aspect, I will agree that candidates should have the right to, you're verbally talking to a reporter, and when it's published, that's where the issue was. And I think that policy should be addressed because, as we have seen, there are complications that can arise through the policy, the current form of the policy.
Thank you. Open debate. Wow.
Okay, we're going to go on to closing statements now. Each of you will have 2 minutes to finish up, and since we started with Connor and came this way, we will start with Joy and go the opposite of how we've been moving tonight.
Perfect. So you're in the audience and you're watching, and you are trying to decide who to vote for your next ASI president. And obviously you can look up here and see that all of us have our different experiences, and all of us, I would say, are highly qualified for the job. And really what it comes down to is finding that person who you believe has the vision, you believe has the humility in empowering others, and really, who you believe is the best leader. And a leader is someone who inspires people and who really just really works with other people and is personable and able to connect to students on a normal level. And I really think that it is just absolutely essential that you take the time to become informed about the three of us. And I think you've already got a good sense of that tonight. I'm really focusing on my 3 areas: money, safety, and community. And I know those aren't the only 3 areas that students are concerned about on this campus, but they are the 3 things that I found students to be most concerned about. And in my eyes, those are the things worth pursuing, and they are difficult things. They aren't things to shy away from, particularly the money area. I have those tangible ideas, and I'm not one to say that my experience is the only thing that makes me perfect for this job. It definitely helps, but I hope that you see that my willingness to approach students and really engage them in conversations, in real conversations, lends me to be the best candidate for this job. I really truly want to serve Cal Poly in every way that is possible. This choice that you make will likely not define all of your 4 years at Cal Poly. It might not be something you ever think about again, but it will define your 1 year. So on Wednesday, choose joy. It's as simple as that.
I'd like to begin my closing statement by once again thanking Mustang News and the Cal Poly College Republicans for putting on this event. I also want to thank the other 2 candidates that are standing up here. The bottom line is 2 out of 3 of us are going to come away at least a little disappointed on Wednesday. But that's not what matters. What matters is the exchange of ideas that's happened tonight and over the past 4 or 5 weeks or however long we've been doing this campaigning stuff. It's the voice that goes out and the inspiration that's going to come to students. Now, that being said, leaders don't force change. They don't necessarily even create it. They don't write it down. They don't tell you what you need to do to change. They don't make change happen necessarily. Leaders inspire change. They show other people what they're capable of doing. And I know that if every Cal Poly student works as hard as they can to reach their full potential, we will all literally be amazed at what we collectively can accomplish. So that being said, don't choose the person up here who you necessarily think has the best leadership experience or, you know, is the smartest student standing at these podiums. Choose the student that inspires you to make a difference on the campus. It doesn't matter if that's me, Joy, or Connor. Choose the one that will inspire you to be the difference that you want to see. Now, that being said, I want to serve students. My heart is to make each and every individual the best that they can be and ensure that Cal Poly continues to be a top-notch institution for years to come. And I believe that by inspiring that change and creating a culture of change, what we accomplish in the next year will carry on far beyond any of our times at Cal Poly. So on Wednesday, choose the candidate that inspires you to be the difference. And if you feel it's right, vote for Jake.
So my past 2 years working with ASI, I've gotten the privilege to see what it can offer for students, but I've also seen the areas that it lacks and how it needs to be improved and enhanced so that we can, again, serve students in better ways. And strong leadership is important in this office, working with administration. My past 2 years, I have worked with that in administration. I know how those conversations go. I have acted efficiently, whether it's administratively, whether it's financially, to make sure our resources are being used in the most effective way possible. But I also bring connection in a way that serves more than what ASI currently has, more than just our College Club councils, but expand beyond that to all areas of campus because we all matter here at Cal Poly. It is the fresh blood, it is the open-mindedness, and it is the passion that student government needs to promote change and to promote the well-being of Cal Poly. And the open-mindedness, fresh blood, and passion is something that I will bring to ASI and Cal Poly. So on Wednesday, vote Connor Paquin because when you do, you are voting for that strong leadership. You are voting for that efficiency, and you are voting for that connection to your campus.
Well, this concludes the inaugural Mustang News and Cal Poly College Republicans ASI presidential candidate debate. We hope the discussion and the debate doesn't stop here. We still have a few more days before the election, so we hope these conversations continue. We'd like to thank you all for coming, and above all, we'd like you to join us in thanking the candidates for all of their hard work and for being up here and getting grilled tonight. So thank you.
Video from tonight's event will be online at mustangnews.net shortly, and be sure to follow us there for the continued coverage of this election. We'd like to remind you all that voting begins on Wednesday at 7 a.m. on your Cal Poly portal and continues until Thursday at 7 a.m. Results will be announced Thursday during UU Hour in the Multi-Activity Center and the Rec Center following the Atmosphere concert. So we hope to see you then for the announcements, but until then, have a good rest of your week. Thank you.
Go Cal Poly.
So do I get to keep the legal pad? Just kidding. Yeah. We should do that. I should probably rip off my hat. Yeah, those are off the record. Okay.